were really going for it then, Jen, weren't we?
Yes, bums together.
Bums together,
Absolutely.
two Jens
Yes.
become one. Good morning, good morning. I hope you're having a fantastic Sunday so far. Maybe you've just joined us bleary-eyed with a cup of tea, ready to watch the Quilting Classroom with Jenny Raymond. Jenny, back again for another fantastic class. We're very excited.
One hopes so. You always go into these things slightly with trepidation because, you know, it's the first time I've probably ever done this, and certainly never done it on air. And I had to get up at 10 to 3 and leave the house, and I had no sleep.
You could have stayed at my house.
Because the grandchildren at 11:45, little patter of feet. So I had to put child back to bed, and you lie there waiting for the child to wake up
I
again.
just put the child in the bed with me. You're not supposed to do that.
No, because I was going to leave at 10 to 3, and that would have left the child in the bed, and these two brothers would have wanted, oh no, forget it.
Oh no, that would have
so
been...
no sleep, no...
No rest for the wicked, that's what they say, Jenny
Yes,
Raymond.
and now we've got to dance at the end of the show. Right, okay.
Yes, but we'll do it on a high. Now, we have, before we kick off the Quilting Classroom, which I know is what you've tuned in for, you'll want to grab the things that Jenny is potentially using in the hour. So we're going to do that ever so quickly. Then I'm going to get lost and leave you to it, which is exactly how everyone likes it. So we've got, first of all, the Joseph's Coat bundle, Jenny. Talk to us about that.
Okay.
What can I
You've got
achieve
two
with this?
pieces here. You've got one is the uneven 9 patch, which we're using for most of the classroom, which is going to make the tablecloth that we're making, the table centre. If you wouldn't mind passing me the Quilting Classroom PDF.
Of course I will.
This is what we're going to be making on the Quilting Classroom using this tool. But I've deliberately had it put with this one because after lunch on Christmas Day, Boxing Day, you're going to want to curl up and do some sewing, and this is one of the superest templates for using up your scraps, making memories out of. When you look at the back, just think all of these colour pieces could be your favourite scraps of fabric. And if there's time at the end of the show, I will run through quickly, yet again, how you use this super, and I think it's one of my favourite templates. So I put those two together.
That's a statement indeed, isn't it? One of your favourite templates. So these are all together. The uneven 9 patch and Joseph's Coat is what you've got, and you're getting it for £22.49 if you're in the club. Now this is something that's going to be in your crafting drawer for a lifetime, in fact, and you're going to use all over and over and over and over. Should be nearly £40.
Yes,
You're making a great
that
saving.
is such a good price. People complain about the Quilting Classroom because they record it, and then when they come to watch recording, stuff has gone. So grab it, put it in your basket, because these prices won't last forever.
No, they certainly won't. 290420 is your item code. Now, the quilting tool, the Simply Quilting tool, that's next.
Right.
And this is the Simply Easy Square, isn't it?
We've got two parts of this for a particular reason. If we can deal with this one first.
Okay,
because
yes, absolutely.
This is the crazy template, and the reason for having the square with it is you'll want to square off your crazy block. So the square is a very good way of squaring up your crazy block, because when you've added shapes to the uneven shape in the middle and you've just made a lump of crazy patchwork, to square it off would be an ideal advantage. So if you've never done any patchwork in your life, you're thinking of trying, crazy patchwork is great because you don't have to worry about seams, you don't have to worry about shapes, you just literally hack and sew. But you're going to have to square off if you want to put the blocks together or turn into a cushion or a table mat. So you've got a ruler that will square it off for you, any size square up to 9.5 inches.
Fantastic. And then you get, of course, the lefty-righty square as well. So this is the whole bundle, £20.69 for the both. So it's a great price tag, and you're not on your own. And you know what, Jenny is going to be using these sorts of things throughout the hour. Now, as Jenny said, that a lot of you do record this. Maybe go and have your brekkie and then think, oh, I'll sit down to that in a minute when I've settled everyone, and then you can't get the things. So just a heads up for you for that.
Grab them.
Grab them while you can. Now, your 3-piece templates now.
We've got, these are appliques. Now, anybody can do appliques, and you've got 3 particularly Christmassy ones, but think about them. You could use these appliques in a wide variety of different ways. What you get in the kits, and probably best you have the pictures on the front because they can see what they're going to make.
Okay, great.
So this will do holly leaves, berries and a bow. This will do a variety of heart shapes, and you always want hearts. Think Valentine's Day. And this does trees. Now, they don't have to be Christmas trees or festive trees. They could be anything. And the nice thing about these templates is that they could be used as a stencil. So just think, the children, and there are time, they could make their own cards. All they've got to do is to paint, say, through that shape, put a little stalk on, they've got a tree.
Oh,
so these could be
fantastic.
used as not only applique stencils for your fabric, but think about painting through them and literally just using them as shapes, because it's washable, it's bendable, you can do what you like to. So you could sponge through it, you could spray through it, you could do anything you like through that.
Because it's totally washable, and you're getting a trio of stencils for £8 and 9p, so not breaking the bank with that one. 377116. These are all quite affordable bits and bobs for you, aren't they? Now we are going to give you the easy templates, and these are, you've got a variety of different sorts of templates here. You've got the yo-yo templates, and then you've got the you've got the circles and the hexagons, haven't you?
Well, yet again, you've got all sizes of circles. A number of times you're going to want a circle. And let me warn you now, your Christmas table centre using the uneven 9-patch might require a circle in the middle.
Aha.
And one of those circles would be ideal. The same with Joseph's coat. But yet again, you've got stencils. So you've got all your sizes of circles. But I had to do some bubbles the other day. So I took one of these, a fish. So I was doing a fish on a wall. I needed some bubbles, so I literally took the paint, put that on the wall, painted through it, lifted it off carefully, painted through the bubbles, and I had bubbles.
Fantastic, of all different sizes.
You know, again, children can use it, adults can use it. It doesn't have to be for fabric. It's circles, and they're in a variety of sizes. They've got the measurements on them. Just think, you can't break them. You can do what you like with them. They are a great set of templates to have.
And of course, you've got the hexagon in there as well.
And the really wee one, the quarter of an inch one.
Oh my gosh!
Messy. So if you're doing something really, really, really tiny and you want to mark your seam allowance, perhaps
Teeny
you
tiny.
can draw that, sew round that as your seam allowance, add a bit of fabric on. You could do minute doll's house ones.
Wow! Oh my gosh, little tiny doll's house ones. Wow. 275993 is your item code for that one. Now let's talk about the square bundle. So you've got the B square and you've got the easy rule here.
Now, the reason for putting these two together is there are going to be people out there who are going to want a new hobby after Christmas. And if you're going to be starting off with a new hobby and you want to get into the patchwork world and you have space to store these things, you need the big ruler and you need a big square. So this is for anybody thinking about setting out. If you're going to come to my beginner's class, then you need one of those and one of those. Your square does every size up to 12.5 inches and all the important quarter of an inches in between. And your ruler does 6.5 inches up to 24 inches as well. These are two ideal pieces. And again, they're usually extraordinarily expensive. We've got them at a jolly good price today.
We have, and these are, of course, specifically for quilting, so they will sit beautifully on your fabric. They're not flimsy. They will sit down and hold tight. Let's see if we can hear it. You know, they're substantial. They're quite heavy.
Well, they're great for use with your rotary cutter. And if you don't want to use a rotary cutter, you can just draw around it and cut with scissors. But they are precise, and you need precision, my friends, if you are going to do patchwork.
If you want it to be perfect, you absolutely do.
Absolutely.
And there's nothing worse than pouring your heart into something and spending ages over it for it not to finish perfect, because you feel disheartened. So if you've got the right tools, you'll be able to get the right finish, won't you? All yours, as Jane said, at a jolly super price tag of £38.69 if you're in the club. But we're offering you two flexi pays with this one. £19.35. Interest-free flexis. If you're in the club, that's your flexi price. Otherwise, it's in the red at the top. Now, your pins and needles bundle, again, these are essential. And these are all bits and bobs that you need to hand at all times.
Great lot. We've had them many times before. If you haven't got them, they are stocking fillers. Just think you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7 items here. These could be 7 little secret Santa things. 7 little things for that quilting group you've got to go to at the end of a month or so's, 2 weeks or so's time, and you've got little presents. But you want them for yourself. You need your dressmaker's marking pencil. You need your leather thimble. If you're going to be doing any upholstery, or perhaps a lot of things where you're going to be hurting your finger, wear that. You've got your... Yes, it's a leather thimble. It's flexible, it goes on your finger and it protects your finger, your pushing finger.
I see, that's fantastic.
And it is marvellous for upholstery. So if you're going to be doing upholstery in any way, shape or form, and you've got to be pushing needles through, brilliant that. It's great for hand quilting, which is what it's meant for, but it's super for all sorts of other things. You've got your 1/4 of an inch ruler there, which is exactly a 1/4 inch, 2 sorts of pins, because you always need pins, and then you've got some masking tape. And indeed, with this, you've got the basting needles. And these, I find, are great for not only basting or tacking your quilts together, but also for doing curtains, interlining the curtains.
Okay.
Because they're a long, thin needle, and they just catch a little tiny weeny bit of the lining. So for any craft, this little lot is highly essential.
Oh, fantastic. And what a great price it is. It is a stocking filler price tag, isn't it? Definitely a pocket money price tag. Bit of Mambo Madness, $9.89 is your price tag, $295,524. Your rotary cutter that we have for you now, we haven't got it in front of us, but we have got it on the screen for you. So this is your rotary cutter, a 45mm rotary cutter, but you also get your cutting mats, and you get a spare blade with this. This, again, essential. You want to protect your surfaces when you're cutting, and you want to get the perfect cut. Then here's your rotary cutter bundle, £20.69 if you're in the club. Right, so we're going to be very quick and whiz down the line,
okay.
and, because I know that everybody's tuned in to watch the quilting classroom. Of course, we have got, easy peasy patchwork.
Now, the reason for these being here, these are 2 DVDs that will take you through 12 blocks. All right, well, in fact, it's 13 blocks. You get an extra one for luck. So the blocks are on the back of the quilt. If you turn that over, those are your 6 blocks on here, and here are the blocks that are on this particular one. The reason for putting these here is, in the new year, we're going to do another sampler quilt. And the templates and the designs I'm going to be using, some of them are on these DVDs. And if you are starting patchwork, this one does for real beginners. This one takes you to the second stage.
Oh, so you've got them both,
so
then you're ready.
Them both, and you're ready, and you've got, this will go with some of the shapes you got on the show, but it also explains how to do your basic patchwork from your cutting out with your rotary cutter and your ruler, right the way through to how you make up these blocks. You've got 4 hours of me instructing you clearly, tidily, and even being polite most of the time.
Well, you're always polite. You're frightfully polite, darling.
Not always.
337743 is your item code. Now, the books bundle, sew pieces and stitch bits from Jenny Raymond. Of course, you know, when it's Jenny Raymond, you're going to get fantastic tuition, and that's exactly what you've done in here.
Buy them. If you've not got them both, then give them away to friends, because it'd be a jolly good present. If you've got one of them, give the other one away to a friend. But these will take you through 36 small, silly projects, from your owl bunting to more sensible things like those cushions. You've got 1 or 2 bits of humour in them, clearly stage photographed, and indeed there's a couple of bits in today's show that will be using the principles from these just extended.
Just full tuition, a little bit about Jenny in here as well. 16.19 for the both. That's fantastic. Great really quality good. Books as well, by the way. 385835. Now we're going to give to you...
Right, mug rugs.
Mug rugs.
Okay.
I thought that was something from Harry Potter.
No. These are the round mug rugs. They come in a variety of different sizes, but I'm going to show you an easy way to make a quick gift using this stuff. It's a double-sided fusible heat-resistant fibre.
Oh.
You've got round ones here, and in fact we've got the bigger ones there. Now I've used these for not only mats, but you could use these for doing a variety of all sorts of things. So this was some patchwork done onto the same fibre, the bigger version we're about to come to. And you might remember that at various shows I've made boxes out of them. So these boxes were made with this stuff. But you might want to buy these for your mug rugs and come to the oval ones, the ones we got under here, because you get a bigger amount of stuff to make the bigger boxes with.
I see. So I'll give you the details for the smaller ones. They are just £3.59, but they are limited stock, so those will sell out soon. 360350 is your item code. I think those will sell out soon. So let's go with those. Let's go large.
Right, so this is the large oval ones, which of course you can then cut up. And I cut these up to make that box with. That was about 2 quilting classrooms away. You could make this box, and this box comes out of the Sew Pieces book. You could indeed do, this little basket, and the idea for this comes out of the Stitch Bits book, but the stiffening for them all is the same stuff as the mug rugs. It's the oval placemat, double-sided, fusible, heat-resistant fibre.
Wow.
So you can cut it any size, you can join the bits together with a zigzag. It is a great product for doing a wide variety of different things with it. So there you go.
Even the boxes, look, 339770, £8.09 if you're in the club. One more for you that Jenny and I are going to show you. So let's have a look. we have got the Bonder Web for you, £2.79. Bonder Web is always something that is important to have, especially if you're doing quilting or anything where you need a bit of stiffening going on.
Well, this again, if you're working with the appliques, that's where you need to do it. So you draw your applique on the Bonder Web, and then you stick it on the back of the fabric, cut the applique shape up, bond it in place. So you could do it for Christmas cards, you can do it onto paper, you could do it with your Joseph's coat, you could bond those circles in the middle. That is something to pop in your basket. Now, it's one of those things you add on to your basket, or buy 2 or 3 of them.
Yes.
Because, you know, it's only a low-cost item, so buy several of them while we've got it. Great stuff. And it keeps.
And it's £2.51, so you're right. If you're going to pay the postage on it, buy 3 or 4 of these.
Yep. Or put it in your basket with some of the mug rugs or the oval placemats or anything else like that.
Indeed. 269688 is your item code. Now, we have got for you a few more quick items before Jenny gets to it. 371859 is for your heritage wadding. This is 80% cotton, 20% poly, and this is a medium size at £17.99. We have also got the extra large for you. This is 80% cotton, 20% poly, of course. Again, and this is a lot of wadding, 90 inches by 120, £22.49, and you're going to need that, aren't you? Now we've got some fat quarters. This is the Christmas Holly collection. Really great price on 6 pieces, £8.99 for you. We've also got some different variations of fat quarters. We've got the Ditty Dotty ones. And these are your... oh, those aren't those aren't the steampunk ones. That's not the steampunk ones, sorry. There we go, hang on a sec. We're just waiting for them. Steampunk ones are great for loads of different projects, and I love putting these into resin pendants as well. I think they're fantastic. They're only £4.49. They're great for making things like ties. Oh, I think those have just sold out. Crikey, O'Reilly. They've sold out before. God, goodness me, you were on those. Now, Ditsy Dotsies, we've got for you. They're only £6.29 if you're in the club. Fat quarters for your patchwork fabric set. Lovely, 100% cotton. 363052. Now we have got some beautiful linen and cotton, rayon linen cotton, and these are yours. These have got the sewing machines is the word I'm looking for, and the buttons. So these are brilliant. They feel amazing. They're great for making bags and things out of because they're really strong. £9.89, 6 in total. Now we have got for you. Now this sells out a lot. Peter Rabbit, we've got the blue, the pink's already sold out, £8.99. You get Peter Rabbit, you get Flopsy Mopsy and Cottontail on there. You've got Peter Rabbit in Mr McGregor's cabbages. You have got him leaning against the a wheelbarrow, and you've got some carrots in there. I love that collection. It's only £8.99. It's brilliant to have in your stash. 387413 is your item code. Jenny Raymond's just stolen my Peter Rabbit, in fact, because she loves it so much. Now, okay, so we are going to get started with your quilting classroom. I know you've tuned in to watch Jenny, and so Jenny's going to take it away and lead you through so many fantastic projects. So I'll be off and I'll see you after Jenny.
I don't know, abandoning me. Right, we are going to be doing the quilting classroom. We've got various things to work our way through. Some serious, some silly. There is a PDF, okay? Sadly, because I use the sort of profile of the previous PDFs, I have forgotten to change the date. So certain places where you can download the PDF from, I have changed it, but sadly, I hadn't appreciated my mistake when I sent it off to Create and Craft to load on their website. So can you kindly reread 30th of October to read 4th of December? This PDF will take you through the various ideas on the classroom. And we're going to be starting off with looking at mug rugs. Now, mug rugs are basically this fusible fibre, and they come in a variety of shapes and sizes. You'll see on the quilting classroom, I actually use the oval ones, but you can do the same trick with the round ones, or indeed you could cut your own shapes out of the oval placemats. And I was just thinking, why not, with that Peter Rabbit fabric, think nursery, because you can make some very nice little mats by simply bonding the fabric to one side and indeed the other side, and using this neat trick I'm about to show you to make some very quick nursery placemats, just something pretty to put that little basket of nice little bits on for the new baby, possibly. So the fibre I'm using is this double-sided fusible fibre. Now, originally, the mug rugs that I've done on the show before, I have embellished them with a satin stitch round the edge. And this was no more complicated than pressing fabric to either side of the shape. The shape is irrelevant. You just iron fabric to either side, trim the fabric back, and then you satin stitch round it. Now, the problem lay in the satin stitching. Not everybody can do a beautiful satin stitch easily. And I was considering, is there a way of making the mug rug without having to either satin stitch or bind the raw edges? And the answer was yes. And this is the technique. The fact I've used the oval shapes is neither here nor there. If you take a piece of fabric slightly bigger than the shape of your mug rug, allow ½ an inch or so all round, no more than that, press it to one side of the fabric. And you'll need to hold the iron on there, sort of count to 10, move the iron, count to 10, move the iron, count to 10. That will bond it. And I promise you it will not stick to the ironing board because this is heat resistant. Once you've bonded fabric to one side of it, take another bit of fabric the same size and do make sure you put the fabrics right sides together. Okay? If you don't put the fabrics right sides together, you will have a horrible surprise. What is going to happen then is you're going to sew round outside the edge of the mug rug. So you'll actually sew round here all the way round, but you will leave a little gap. So on the one I've done here, you're going to sew all the way round, but leave a little gap. So there'll be no stitching, and I do it on one edge of the mug rug. So I've sewn all the way round. And be very careful you sew beside the fibre, not through the fibre. Then all you do then is simply turn it through the hole. So turn it through. You can squash it up as much as you like, just turn it through the hole. Now, because this stuff is double-sided fusible, once you've turned it through the hole, poke the corners out, and if you're lucky enough to have the good old Bamba pointer and creaser, this is great for getting into the corners and just sort of easing the corners out. Once you've done that and poked it through, if you then just simply iron it, get it down there properly, I've missed a bit in that corner, straighten it there. If you fold it over, you can bond the fibre to one side of it with the iron and then just iron that to suit. Now, a small amount of hand stitching would close the gap. And then to finish it off, you could literally do nothing more than just top stitch round the outside edge. And there you have a mug rug. I don't know what those threads are, I was going to top stitch it. Just literally done very rapidly. And it could be done to any shape you like. Here is a round one. I have yet to get round top stitching. And I thought, that's a quick way, but hey, come on. Who wants to have just a plain fabric? Who would like to have something slightly different? And what about those beginners or those with lots of scraps? Why not make a mug rug or a placemat using the crazy patchwork? So here we have some crazy patchwork ones, and you really can use up all your scraps. The crazy template is great because it comes in 5 different sizes, and you'll need to cut yourself the shape to begin with. So if you literally take the shape, lay it on the fabric and cut out round the pointy end. So pop up here and up there and along there a bit. Then decide as to what size of crazy shape you're going to need by sliding the template up and in until it fits the edges of the fabric, and simply cut the other sides. And remember, we never cut towards ourselves, we always try to cut away from ourselves. So I'll turn my body round and just move the template slightly. Once you've got your crazy shape, and you've got different sizes on here that you can use, how you make a crazy patchwork mug rug, get rid of that in a time-honoured fashion, is to place the shape in the centre of the piece. Don't iron it. Please don't iron it. It's very tempting to go to the iron and just plonk the iron on it. If you do, you will stick the iron to the fusible fibre. Cut yourself a series of strips. They can be all sorts of different sizes and widths. You could literally be using up bits and pieces. Start on possibly one of the longest sizes, not the really short bit. And the trick with doing any form of crazy patchwork is take the piece of fabric, lay it on top, matching the raw edges. The strip need be no bigger than the piece it's lying on top of, underneath the sewing machine, and ideally a 1/4 inch seam allowance, but it doesn't really matter. I'm going to shift my needle to a 1/4 inch. What I would be inclined to do is to sew 1/2 inch just to anchor the layers, then taking your scissors, cut this strip off level with the bit underneath, and you can just hack it off. You need no more than the length of the piece it's lying on top of, down to the bottom. When you get to the bottom, don't sew too far off the end. Raise the presser foot, turn the work round a 1/4 turn going anti-clockwise, lift that strip up and finger press it back. Don't make the mistake of ironing it because you'll stick the iron to the fusible. Take the next piece, line the next piece up with the centre section of the crazy patchwork. There'll be a bit of this sticking out, don't panic, you can trim it off. And again, your top strip need be only the length of the pieces that it is covering, so it goes right from there to there. So let me just do one more. Pop it under there. And this is basically how you do it. And you work your way simply anti-clockwise round the piece. Sew down a little way, trim the top strip off so it matches a bit underneath. And if you make a mistake, you can always add another strip. You can adjust it. You can embellish it with all sorts of stitches on the machine. This particular fibre is fantastic for sewing through, so you could use your machine, you could play, and if you make a mistake, well, you could always put an applique on top of it. The little extra bit I've got here, I will just cut off, because you don't want to have any extra bulk. So trim off any excess pieces, pieces underneath there, and cut it off. You can just hack it off. Don't really have to be terribly tidy with crazy patchwork. And basically what will happen is you will go on adding strips in whichever colour order you happen to fancy. The strips need only go right from one end to t'other. Work on until you have covered the entire piece that you're working on. And the trick with this particular way of, this quick way of making up the design, is to allow extra round the outside edge, so you've got room for your seam. Because all you will then do is take the mug rug, take a lump of fabric, whack it right sides down onto the fabric, trim off the excess a little bit. You don't want to have too many lumpy bumpy bits sticking out. You go round there. And again, this is just hack it off. This doesn't have to be terribly careful, as long as you leave yourself room for a seam allowance around it. Put it onto another piece of material, right sides together, cut all the way around, then simply follow the technique I've just shown you about sewing round the design, leaving a gap, turning it through the gap, and you will have a crazy patchwork mug rug, placemat, whatever else you happen to fancy. So a really quick gift for Christmas. Well, that was fine. I thought, okay, that's great. We can do mug rugs. What else could I do that makes a really quick gift for Christmas? Well, not that long ago, I had a bit of a problem. I have some very sharp little scissors, these ones. And I was visiting the grandchildren, and they happened to be in the bottom of one of my bags. What I had not appreciated was that they had fallen to the bottom of my bag and they were sticking out in the corner. Grandson comes running towards me, "Granny, Granny, Granny," leaps up. And sadly, my scissors went into his knee and cut him. It's rather sad when you arrive at the grandchild's house and immediately you've damaged the child. You prefer to sort of do that later on in the day rather than at the very beginning. So I thought, I could do with something to cover my scissors. I could do with a needle case, a little scissors case. Now, there are quite a lot of scissors cases you can find online if you Google it. And quite a lot of them come by taking 2 squares of fabric and a bit of wadding, making up like a sort of little bag, adding a tag there, folding the sides over, and then you can just stitch down the middle. And this makes a little pocket to put your scissors in. And indeed, this is the same technique that I use in the Stitch Bits book for making different bags. Is I will take 2 squares of fabric which I've sewn together, turned right side out, so you've got literally a sort of padded square, and this could be used to make either a bag like the one I've got here, which is the same principle as the scissors thing I was about to show you. The same square will also make into this bag. The same square will also make into that bag. So it's a very good way of using a padded square. Yeah, it's a great idea, that, but it meant I had to hand sew that tidily, and I don't do hand sewing. So my thinking was going is, how can I make a scissors case quickly without having to do that? And here is my answer to it. If you take a square of wadding, it can be any wadding you like. We've got lots of different waddings on the show. And the square size literally can be the same size as this Simply Easy 9.5-inch square. So cut yourself a square of wadding. You'll need to divide the wadding in half up the middle. You will in fact get 2 scissor cases out of 1 piece of wadding. So divide it in half up the middle. And that's where these long rulers come in so useful. Having done that, you're then going to want a square of fabric. And the square of fabric needs to be exactly the same size as the wadding was, so another 9.5-inch square. What you're going to do then is take one of the wadding triangles and lay the wadding triangles on top of the square with the wrong side up. If you press the square in half, so you get a decent crease down the middle, lay the wadding just to one side of that crease. And what you're now going to do is stitch the wadding in place. So here's one that I did earlier, which is here. When it comes to sewing the wadding in place, I would suggest you sew the wadding in place from this side. You can see the crease as a straight line, and what a wonderful opportunity this is to use some of the embellishment stitches on your machine. So I just used a very quick fancy pattern. You could do anything you like, but sew it from this side. And remember, you're sewing through the wadding and not the other side, or else you'll get a slight surprise. Once you've sewn across the centre there, it will pay you just to go round the very edge as close as possible with a long straight stitch on the machine. You then need to add a tab, and I just happen to have got a little piece of elastic here, one of those silvery coloured elastic. The tab wants to go on, and this will seem a bit strange, in one of these corners, going downwards into it. So don't put it on that way round, or else you'll get a funny surprise when you turn the thing through. So it needs to go on this corner, so it's going not on the corner where it's all wadding, not on the corner where it's all fabric, but on either one of the other two. Pin it in place and stitch it. And here's one I did earlier. So here's my little tab. Notice I've got it that way round going down into it. There is the wadding neatly stitched in place. All you're now going to do is to fold this in half like this. So you've got wadding to wadding, and this will be the lining. What will happen now is you will sew round the shape. So let's fish that out of there and cut the threads off. Because it can be quite bulky down the bottom, I'm going to sew not the very pointy end, but slightly roundy across the end here. So starting at the wadding end, drop your needle down into the fabric. Your seam allowance can be 1/4 of an inch. Do a slightly rounded end. It'd be rather nice if you've kept all the raw edges together. Proceed to sew all the way up one wadded side. Just make certain when you go past the tab, you don't catch the tab in either of the seams. It's well worth taking a little peek underneath and just making sure you poked it well out the way. Now, proceed to sew, I don't know, 1/3 of the way down the other side. Don't sew the entire thing. Stop. Leave a gap. You've got to have a gap to turn it through. And then you're going to complete the seam. Now, because you're doing the lining wants to be smaller than the outside. So instead of coming right down to the end of the lining, I'm going to chop a bit off the lining, about sort of an inch or so. So just round it off a bit. And then once you've done that, trim off all the excess. So trim off that little end, trim off your little bits there, trim off this little piece. And all that happens is open it up and turn it through the hole. And when you've turned it through the hole, there's she. Of course, if you leave a big enough hole, you can turn it through nice and easily. If you leave a fairly small hole, you're going to be standing here struggling to turn it through. But of course, the smaller the hole means the less to stitch up afterwards. And being inherently lazy, the smaller the hole, the better it is. Once you've turned it all the way through, just poke the ends out. Sit there. It pays to poke the lining out first before you tuck it inside. So this is where, again, the bamboo pointer and is jolly good for pushing up the end there and doing the other end. There we go. Give it a good shove. And then all you're going to do then is tuck the lining inside the little pocket there. Get it in there properly. I would give it a good press. There. there's my tab. Get it out there, which has come promptly off. Shouldn't do everything on the television and sew at the same time. Once you've tucked it inside there, hopefully your tab will be a little bit better stitched in than mine was. It's going to end up looking something like this one. Here's one I did earlier that's considerably better. Give it a very good press. Pop a button on the front, and then you will have a really nice, very quick case to keep those scissors in that will make it safe, so when you next go to meet the grandchildren, you won't end up damaging them before you've even taken them out for the day. This can be done any size you like. It's quick, it's easy. It will pay you at some point in time to actually sew the hole up on the inside if you are going to give it to somebody. As it's one of mine, it'll probably stay there forever. And then I thought, well, what about thinking safety still? You could, and indeed in Sew Pieces, there is a spectacle case. Rather than having a case for your spectacles, why not make one of those cases? Again, you could use that very nice sewing fabric, great gift to go with the scissors case, and make one to put your rotary cutter in. So these ideas would be super for any sewer. You could use the sewing fabric, you could use a spotty dotty fabric, you could use a Peter Rabbit fabric. So quick ideas. Now, those are silly things to do with fabric. Let's turn our attention to something much more sensible. And this was to use the uneven 9 patch. And the uneven 9 patch is one of those patchworks that really has a lot of things you can do with it. It makes a fabulous design. You can go on and make a quilt out of it. I decided I'd have 4 blocks and put them together to make something to go on the Christmas table. But you could do this in any other fabric you liked. You can get the entire thing here out of 1 pack of 6 fat quarters, and that includes the binding. So you only need a pack of 6 fat quarters to do this entire piece. How are you going to do it? Well, usually the uneven 9 patch, and it will come with instructions, will require you to have a 10.5-inch square for the centre. This 10.5-inch square is usually made up of a series of pieces. It has a classic 9 patch. But I decided not to have that. I wanted to have on the centre of mine 4 squares. So let's move some of these things out the way. Just give me a bit more room and tidy up a little bit. Dump them on the floor. I do pick it up afterwards, I know. I have to. I'm made to. So if you take 4 5.5-inch squares, now they have to be 5.5-inch squares, and they get sewn together to form a larger square. I had 2 in the green and 2 in the cream, and literally sew them together using a 1/4-inch seam allowance until you get a larger square. I would be inclined to press the seams open and flat. It simply makes life a little easier for when you come to put the design together, rather than having a sort of a bulky lump in the middle and also bulk here. So it seams open and flat. What we're going to do with this then is to use a certain part of the ruler. Now it's very clearly labelled. Place line on edge of 10.5-inch uneven 9 patch block. This is your 10.5-inch uneven 9 patch block. You could just use a plain square if you wanted to. Don't have to have it pieced. But how you cut it out is it's got a little mark in the middle there. Place the little mark on the seam. Another reason for making it out of 4 squares, because it meant I had a middle easily marked. Bring the black line on the template to the edge of the fabric. Make sure you've got the same amount sticking out either end, and simply cut round the arc. And it's dead easy to cut with any rotary cutter, any size you like. And this will make a nice arced cut into it. You repeat this on each of the 4 sides. So you'll end up with a piece of work that looks something like this one. So that is the centre block. And to make the design I've got in front of you, you'll need to do that 4 times. We then have to make the arcs. Now, if you're cutting your arcs out of a fat quarter, you want to have your fat quarter so that, to maximise the fabric, so that the 20 inches is down here and you're folding it across the width. So it's longer and thinner as opposed to being shorter and fatter. We want long and thin. From your strip of fabric, cut off a 10.5-inch strip. And this is where the cutting mat is so useful, because you can lay it on the cutting mat and you can use the measurements on the cutting mat to mark out your 10.5 inches. So let's just do 10.5 inches. Remembering we're keeping the ruler on top of the fabric, so it's actually covering up the bit I want to cut. So a 10.5 inch strip by literally around about 18 inches. When you read the instructions for using the uneven 9 patch, and this is where I slightly disagree with them, because it tells you to fold the fabric. Well, the snag is if you fold the fabric, you've got to allow for the fold. And if you're using a thick fabric, then that fold can actually take up quite a lot of space. So my advice would be is don't fold the fabric. You can keep the fabric folded in half, but put your ruler on it and draw a line 2 inches in from one edge. Draw it with perhaps the dressmaker's washable pencil in the Notions kit, but I'm just going to use a pen so you can see where I've drawn. 2 inches in is ample. If you take the uneven 9 patch, it does tell you very clearly, place line on fold of 10.5 inch strip to cut whole melons. So it's this line you're using. Place that line on the drawn one there. And you can see I've absolutely maximized my fabric. It fits it exactly. Cut round one edge. Flip the fabric round. Turn the ruler and realign it, remembering the line you're using. Now, a little hint here, if you've got a bit of that masking tape and you've got the Notions kit and you put masking tape on, you can actually mask out that line so you won't get it wrong, because it will be ever so easy to use that one and not this one. Sometimes a bit of masking tape in the right place actually does do a jolly good job. And draw around there. To make the design that I made, you'll need 8 of these. And it will go together by taking the center section, put some of these out of the way. You need to find the middle of the oval. So fold it in half to find the middle. And what I tend to do for speed is I will fold it in half and put a small nick, not a very big nick, just a little one. You know, don't hack great lumps out of it, and a nick both sides. Because you're going to line the nick up with the seam on the fabric. So we're going to line the little nick up with the seam and put a pin in it. You really need about 5 pins with this. So pin, nick to seam, and you want to do it with this on the top. I find this is by far and away the best way to make it work well. So line up the middle. Turn the piece round so the flat end here is aligned with the end of the block. And put another pin in it. Ease it round, and it does actually ease round remarkably well. You might want to put a couple more pins in, but it just fits there a treat. Let's put another pin in there. Wondering where my pins have gone to. They're probably somewhere around. There they are. When in doubt, hide your pins. And I'm using the flower pins because I find them particularly useful for sewing up to but not sewing over, and also I can see them and I can pull them out very easily. Do the same thing at the other end, twist it round, line it up with a piece there, pin it, and my pins are all sticking out on the raw edge so that I can remove them as I sew. Make it work, jiggle it a bit, there we go. If you're hand sewing, then just literally mark 1/4 inch if you can do. You do need to sew 1/4 inch. Once you've done that, all you're going to do is sew along the rounded edge. So let's pop it underneath the machine here. Drop your needle down to begin with. If you drop your needle down to begin with, you start the stitch, and it does tend to give you a better performance. Proceed to sew around, removing the pins as you go, because we don't sew over pins, do we? No. Taking the pins out. You won't have to stand on one leg, slightly squiffy. You could do it sitting straight. I'll tell you something, it's much easier when you sit straight. You get to the end here and slide the pin up. And of course, all good girls and gentlemen, boys, will sew onto their little thread saver. Yes, miss. Right. And that gives you your arc. Now, to make the design that's on the PDF, the best way to put it together, or I think I've slightly changed my way from the photographs I gave you, is taking the arcs, start to sew them round the relevant pieces. So you'll have 4 of these, you'll have 8 arcs. Let's move them out the way. If you sew 4 arcs to one complete piece, because I decided it was probably easier to treat it a bit like sashing. So sew 1 arc to each of the 4 sides. To the next section, sew, let's get this around the right way, there it goes. So 1 arc to 3 sides. Do check if you've got it laid out in a specific pattern. I've got the dark green shapes to the centre. Then you're going to take the next section and sew 1 arc to 3 sides. And then, amazingly, you're going to take the last section, which has completely vanished, there it is, and sew 1 arc to 2 sides. And that will form the design. Now, you could go on with this. Just think of a quilt. It doesn't have to be done in Christmas fabrics. It could be done in absolutely anything, because you could go on and on and on doing a beautiful arrangement of different colours here, maybe, and these arcs. Now, for some people, when it comes to binding, that could be a problem. Now, you might say to yourself, I don't want to do that. Could I just do one of those? Well, no reason why you just can't do one of them. And I did do one of them some years ago as a Halloween mat. And then you just bind it with strips cut on the bias. And of course, if you're doing a plain square in the middle, think that's where you could add an applique. You could take a 10.5-inch square and add holly berries to it. Those appliques we've got on the show really are useful. So your centre square doesn't have to be pieced, as mine has, or pieced as in the instructions. It could just be a plain square. The binding, whether you're doing the whole table mat or just around, has to be cut on the bias. And when you are cutting it on the bias, I tended to use the double fold over bias. So folded my bias binding in half, stitched it on, and then you roll it up and over the edges and stitch it down on the back, preferably by hand. And let me briefly run through how you join the binding together. If you leave a tail at the start, and it seems strange to have a tail at the start, so a little bit unstitched at the start, fold the start, the diagonal side down at an angle, little seam allowance. When you come round with the endy bit, you're going to lay it inside there, trim off any excess, fold that over that, and literally sew straight past. Now you might say to yourself, oh yeah, well, I didn't want to do that, don't like binding things. Well, in that case then, why not go for straight sides? So here is that lovely steampunk fabric. And what I did here was, instead of having the ovals, I had half melons, which made it really easy to sew together because there was no curves and nothing curved or difficult. And if you're going to do that, then you will simply take the sections that we've got here, and you want a whole load of half melons, which somewhere I had them all. I've probably thrown them on the floor. I'm now going to have to do an undignified grovel. There they are. So what I've got here is half melons. And when it comes to doing half melons, you're back to using this line, okay? So it does say place line on edge. And this will make it extremely simple to sew together, because if you add half a melon, you end up with a blissful square. So half a melon to one side, half a melon to the other side, ditto there, and ditto there. And if you wanted to come up with some fancy pattern, you could always change the half melons for a different colour. So on the block next door, when you put it there, and this is fun, it's a good template. You can do all sorts of different things with it. And I tell you something, just as an aside, you could forget fitting it into something, and that's really how I built up the punk rock design I've got here. If I open it out, you can see it. There we go. You can see where I've got the other colour just literally slotted in there. And these blocks could be put together to make a quilt. You know, if you had 4 of these, you've got a pretty good size lap quilt. Or you could just go on adding borders. But one last little thing before I abandon this and just briefly show you how to do the Joseph's coat is consider just using the shape. Let's get rid of all this little lot, put it on the floor. If you took just the shape, think petals. They could be laid out and applied. I also thought these looked a bit like mackerel, so I could have these swimming. So you could have petals. You could use this as a border. You could have it going swimming along. So the uneven 9 patch can lend itself to all sorts of things. But it comes with the Joseph's coat, and this is her favourite patchwork. So let's very briefly run through the Joseph's coat. I have done this before, but it is such a nice template. Joseph's coat will have 3 parts to the template. And you've got the main section, which is this piece, and you've got the little oval shape. In essence, what will happen to make up the Joseph's coat template is you, from your scraps, cut loads and loads and loads of these. So use your memories, use your scraps, use everything. It's a cracking price, that template, well worth getting. Cut the main sections out. You will fit the ovals to the main sections exactly as I've described earlier, i.e. make a little nick in it and match nick to nick. Flex it round, put a few pins in. 5 pins is absolute maximum. So the centre section, which I've done in calico, to one of the ovals. And to make one of the Joseph's coat sort of circles, you'll need to do that 6 times. So if I have 6 of these and put them together, they will make the basic Joseph's coat oval. There we go. One there, one there, one there, and one will fit in there. These can then be sewn together. When you stitch them together, you'll end up with this sort of hexagonal design that looks a little bit like this one. And I'd go together by sewing into pairs, the pairs into 4s, etc., and gradually building it up by adding pieces together until you've got the complete design. What you can then do is just add 6 more pieces round the edge. One here, one there, and there were some more somewhere. We won't worry about that. There's another one there. And just think, you could use all your leftover bits and pieces. Once you've sewn the bits around the edge, you're going to end up with something that looks a little bit like this one. And here is where the circle part comes into, because you cover up the hole in the middle with this template. But if your circle is a little bit bigger, the hole you require, we've got those absolutely marvellous templates over here where you could make the circle the right size, not necessarily that size, to cover any mess in the middle. So that's why those templates are well worth getting. You have a big variety of different size circles. And indeed the same thing applies to the uneven 9 patch. If you find that the centre of your uneven 9 patch is perhaps a little distray, it's not quite as accurate as you'd like it to be, well, plonk one of those in the centre. The Joseph's coat template is one of those templates that Christmas afternoon comes and I know exactly what I'll do is I will get out my bundle of scraps and I will start making more sections to put together to keep going and continuing on with my handmade, and remember I only do this when I'm on holiday or perhaps it's Christmas afternoon, literally Joseph's coat. And when you come to finish it off, you have a variety of ways of finishing it off. One way of finishing it off could be literally to lay it onto a background, and if we look at the one that's on the wall over here, this is the Joseph's coat template, and I laid it onto a background fabric and then I simply covered the raw edges with a bit of binding. I didn't try to give it a fancy edge. So you could do nothing more complex, I know somebody wanted to know the answer to that, than to sew all the various pieces together, lay it onto another piece of material. Before you put the circly bits in there, you want to bind it. So 1/4 inch bias binding, bind the raw edges and just continue with the binding and go across the gap. Put the circle bit on top, covering it up, and that will neaten off the edge. So rather than have a nasty edge which you've got to actually physically hand sew, why not put it onto a background strip? One of my friends has done that. It's fabulous because she's used Chinese fabrics. Lovely memories of her daughter's wedding and various places they've been to. Wonderful fabric in the middle and all these Chinesey ones. So you can lay it onto a background. And I think it's nearly time for our Jenny to come back. And then she can not trip over this horrendous mess I've got on the floor behind me. So there you are. You have got the Joseph's coat, the uneven 9 packs are simply crazy. We've got mug rugs, we've got oval placemats, we've got stitch bits, sew pieces, books. We've got just about absolutely everything for you.
You have, and did that hour go in a flash?
I know.
I've been sat there watching you. You're amazing. Thank you so much. What a fantastic show. I know everybody has been...
They make it.
Well, of course,
because they watch, they enjoy, and they inspire.
Absolutely. And everyone's giving you so much love. So thank you so much. Now, of course, there have been items that you've been using in the show, and there have been very popular items. So what we're going to do is just give everyone a reminder of those, if we can. So Joseph's coat, something, of course, that you've put together. And actually, you said earlier, Jenny, that this is probably your favourite.
That is. I really like that. This I've got very fond of because I like the potential behind that, and I shall certainly do more of it. But that is, when I saw that initially, I can do this. I can actually do it by hand. Even I can cope with that much hand sewing.
I love this. So if this is something that you wanted, it's a great price tag.
And it's all there. You don't need to have anything else other than that. You can draw around it, cut it out with scissors, got it.
Got it. All done for you. All the brain work's done for you. That's £22.49 if you are in the club. Now we're going to give to you the Crazy tool, the Simply Easy square, and also you're getting the Simply Crazy template as well, so that you can edge off your different designs. You can make them into a square.
You can make them into a square because you're going to end up with a very funny, strange edge. So you need to square it off.
Indeed, that's that one. So this is for you to square off if you're making Joseph's coat, for instance, or one of those kind of patterns.
This is the Crazy template that does the patchwork. That you'd use for squaring it off.
That's squaring it off. Right,
so when you've got a whole load of bits of fabric all over the place and you've got this untidy edge pieces, you then plonk that on the top and cut it square.
And then you can cut around these little squarey bits here. Like you can use that as a template.
You could if you wanted to.
Oh, fab. OK, right, I get it. 347800 is your item code, so you get both of those for you for £20 and 49p. Now, all of the little extras that you need, and these again, like Jenny, this is a great price tag. It's a stocking filler price tag, and you get all the little essentials.
You go 2 to one lot, 2 to another lot, and 1 lot of pins you keep for yourself.
Of course, because you always need pins. So you get 2 lots of pins. You get your quilter's masking tape. You also get your needles, which are great if you're doing the hemming of curtains and things like that, because they're nice and long. Quilter's leather thimble, never seen that before, nice and flexible. You are getting your water-soluble marking pen, always handy, especially specifically when you're quilting.
And you know it comes out with spit.
That's lovely. Thanks. 295524. You went swallowing your quilter too when she said that.
You see, this is why they're never too sure about me, so they come out with things.
That's why we love you, isn't it? Now your books as well. We're running out of time. Now, Jenny's wonderful book. So you've got sew pieces and stitch bits in here. You get a little bit of Jenny's history. You get some quirky pieces like the little fox and the little chicken.
And you get a little bit of what Jenny sometimes has been known to wear.
The fandango frippery.
That's right. You see, I'm a fandango swimsuit. Yes, you see. Well, coming up quick.
Jenny, even tassels and everything. We're going to see a little bit more of the frippery because Jen and I are going to get foxtrotting in a minute. It's not actual foxtrot.
No, it isn't. We can't dance at all.
I'm absolutely dreading this, I've got to say. Don't go anywhere because the kids